All right, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the War Games podcast, number 6 already. So tonight we are going to be going over Task Force Charlie and Task Force Bravo's operations, as well as some other fun stuff. And joining me tonight is Hammer's Main, or Hammer, as most of you know him. Good evening, Hammer.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Why, of course. So, to get this going, firstly we'll go over Task Force Charlie, as chronologically that was the first one. Task Force Charlie, Hammer was not there for that one. I myself was. Captain Drumheller was the Task Force commander, and we did things a little bit differently. We did not have a staff mic available for Company HQ, so I ended up basically filling my primary role as Havoc 7. However, I wasn't the task force commander. I was just the captain's battle buddy. So I basically just grabbed a rifleman's loadout, also grabbed a shotgun and threw that in my backpack for shits and giggles. But it ended up coming in handy, actually. So the mission for Task Force Charlie was to push a couple of clicks northwest of COP Pike and take out a known PRNA position, one of the last PRNA positions in country. So we moved out on foot, and we knew the PRNA had pretty good defenses set up. They had elevation from where we were coming from. We basically had to cross a large valley to even get to them. And we moved out fairly easily. We didn't have any contact for quite a while. Once contact did start, it was pretty hot and heavy for a while. We were able to engage and eliminate a couple of pieces of armor via weapon squads and air assets, and get pushed up to the ridge, basically, that was overwatching the objective area. Once we pushed up to that ridge, us as an HQ element being Havoc 6, myself as Havoc 7, Dagger and Dagger uniform, we basically were linked up with Havoc 4 all night, Havoc 4 being our mortar section. So we basically just ran as one big squad all night. And we pushed up to that ridge. Havoc 4 started putting out fire missions. We started engaging targets as they presented themselves. Pretty straightforward shit. And then we pushed down into the town. And once we pushed down into the town, that's when I pulled the shotgun out. And I remember one point we had rounded a corner of a building, and there was a guy firing at us from maybe 50, 75 meters max from inside of a building. And myself and the captain both peeked the corner, and I start laying into the guy with buckshot, and luckily was able to drop him because the captain fired a 40 mic at him, and the 40 mic went right in the front window and out the out the back window. So it went right through the house, no problem, which was pretty goddamn funny. But again, luckily I was able to drop him with the shotgun. And we were, at that point, we were basically on the left flank of the infantry platoon. They had their support element up on the ridge line, and their rifle squads were getting chewed up a little bit in the town. So we moved down in there basically to reinforce them. That was the whole reason we went down in there. Havoc 3 had asked us to come down and give them a hand, which I was all for. So we pushed down into the town, again, started clearing stuff out, clearing buildings, different ESCO compounds, a roadblock and stuff like that. There was one point we were clearing the roadblocks, and we seen a 240 gunner go around the corner of the roadblock, basically across the street from us. It was all one big roadblock, but he was on the other side of the street. And he rounded the corner and ended up getting dropped as soon as he rounded the corner. Why that 240 gunner was clearing a fucking complex like that, I have no idea, especially being by himself. He had no fucking business being in there. But anyways, I seen him get dropped instantly, and I knew the rounds had to have come from his left. There was a bunker on his left, so I knew there had to be somebody in there. So myself and the captain went over there. Captain was on the far side, so he was on my right. I was on the inside on the left. and we both bust around the corner, and I don't know who killed him. I don't know if he was already dead or what, but he was laying there on the ground. I pumped two rounds of buckshot into him, and Captain hit him a couple times with the M4, and he was definitely fucking dead. So we set up in that roadblock and basically maintained that position for almost the entirety of the operation, just engaging targets that were trying to come at us from the left flank. Again, ourselves as HQ Element and Havoc 4, we were basically holding the left flank of the platoon, of the infantry platoon, so we were just set up there engaging targets. And then we got word that a friendly soldier had been captured. Now, when we got word that that trooper had been captured, it was originally passed to us that he had been captured via after he was tech inserted. Which, for those of you guys that don't know what a tech insert is, for us, if you die or there is an issue that is caused by a technical problem, some type of game bug or something like that, then we will have our Zeus operator reinsert you into the AO via teleport. So it's a tech insert, technical insert. So we were very confused as to how he was captured after a tech insert, because tech inserts, the guys are always inserted behind friendly lines, well behind friendly lines. So it didn't make any sense to us. But then, just by pure fucking luck, I guess, Captain got eyes on the friendly being carried away, and he was a few hundred meters away from us. So he made the call that we were going to go get him. So we immediately started pushing out to go get him. We had to drop down into a valley and go up over onto the next ridge line. As we were moving to the top of the ridge line, it was actually pretty perfect. All the guys were on line with each other. It was kind of textbook as to how we were getting ready to crest that ridge, because we knew that there was guys on the other side of it. So everybody was on line, shoulder to shoulder. We push up there. That's when I ended up getting shot in the side of the fucking head. And any of you that watched the stream know what the cause of that was. For those of you that don't, or didn't watch the stream, as we were cresting the hill, I heard someone on my left start yelling contact, or enemy, or something along that line. And then my lights got knocked out. I heard a single shot, and I was knocked out. And I knew that the shot came from my left, because that's where it came from. And I knew there was no enemies to my left, because we were all on line with each other. So I knew a friendly had fucking turned and shot me in the side of the head, because he got all fucking worked up about seeing an enemy so close to us, and stopped and turned. And because he stopped and I didn't, because he stopped to engage, he turned and shot me right in the side of the head. So it was I'm not going to say honest mistake. It was a silly fucking mistake. But I understand why it happened. It shouldn't have happened, but I understand the reasoning behind it. So that being said, they were able to eliminate that guy, grab the friendly, get me back up, and then we fell back to that roadblock position. And we rode out the rest of the operation there in that roadblock. So pretty cut and dry. We completed our objective of pushing in, eliminating the PRNA in the area, and that was it for Task Force Charlie this week. Now, to move on to Task Force Bravo, I was one of the Zeus operators for Task Force Bravo. It was myself and Sergeant Brewer, the other Sergeant Brewer, or number 2, as I am now going to call him, just for the simple fact that I can say number 2, make it so. But he was the other Zeus operator, and Hammer was the Task Force commander. So, Hammer, go ahead and fill us in on what the goal was for Task Force Bravo and kind of how it fell into, or how the operation worked out for you at the start.
Well, our objectives were twofold. So we had, number one, we had to move up to a town that we received some distress calls from civilians. that were up in the town. I don't remember the name of the town. I don't have that in front of me at the moment. But essentially, it was just a small little village that was a crossroads north of the position of the cop from that we took off from. So beyond that, to the west of that small village was also an occupied town, which contained headquarters of Mosin. So that would be our second objective. So our overall plan was to convoy up towards the village, respond to civilian needs there, hopefully talk with them and see what the situation is, provide whatever assistance they needed, whether it be extract, because they were fairly close to enemy lines at that point in time, um, as well as any security that was needed. And then we would move up in the convoy and continue on and assault the Mosin headquarters.
All right, so fairly simple, with exception to having to deal with the civilians. And for those of you guys that don't know, we don't really deal with civilians that much. One, they're a pain in the ass in Arma because they just take off running all over the place. But two, we're a combat element. Like we're not there to do show of force patrols around civilians and shit like that. Like it's not what we're there for. We're there to kill the bad guys. But they had passed word to us that they were in distress from Mosin forces. So you guys were going to push up there, take care of shit, make sure everybody was good, and then push on to the HQ west of there. Now, for those of you guys that did not watch the last phase of operations, the HQ was the area south of where I took Task Force Alpha to take out the artillery position. This was all planned ahead of time for us as Task Force Alpha to go in, eliminate that artillery position to make things a little bit easier for Task Force Bravo. And I don't know if necessarily it really made it easier since you guys still got hammered a little bit by mortars, but at least they didn't have 155s firing at them. So you guys started off in the convoy, rolled the trucks up north, and got to the village. And before we go over what exactly happened in the village, we were talking about this, I think it was Sunday night, actually. It was just after the operation. But when those guys dismounted those fucking trucks in defilade and started moving up on that village, I got a tactical hard-on like I have never seen before, because it was absolute textbook. And I even said something during my stream. At one point, the one squad on the north side of the road, they pushed out 50 meters or so out in front of the truck, had a nice big wedge going on. I mean, that truck was as protected as it could be, and it looked fucking beautiful. And everybody started pushing up towards the town. And what did you guys see once you got to the town?
Well, there was a jeep containing 3 Mosin troops that were still in the village. We took light contact from them. But while we were engaging, and we saw civilian bodies all over the place. So as we eliminated those contacts, we moved up onto the village, and there was probably anywhere from, I don't recall the final count, but I think it was somewhere around 60 civilians murdered throughout the village, along with burning vehicles, flipped over vehicles, just complete carnage. It was like they were rounded up and executed. So these were lines of civilians. And then one of the interesting things that we saw and passed up to S2, which is our intelligence section here, were pictures of billboards that were basically graffitied with blood of the civilians that said "We are defiant," alluding to some major thing and basically to the viciousness of the Mosin forces. So basically, we walked in and saw that these guys we were too late. Number one, and number two, these guys are fucking savages, and we're gonna go out their headquarters. At that point, I got worried about an ambush because they, number one, knew where we were coming, number two, knew where we were, and they had positions. Like if you saw that village, it was basically nestled in the center of a couple different ridge lines on each side, each flank. So that was my initial concern, was number one, ambush, but yeah, that was a weird. That was actually one of the cooler things in Arma from that I've experienced, because I wasn't expecting that at all. I was expecting maybe a quick, hasty defense mission. I think that's what we all were expecting. But to get in there and then all of a sudden see like these guys got wiped out by your enemy, it's something different for sure.
Yeah, and very quickly, Jail, thank you for the $10 donation and supporting the channel. I'll make sure you get hooked up with some raffle tickets for that badass $1,500 gaming PC. Uh, so yeah, when we were building the mission, number two was basically taking care of the HQ where you guys would be assaulting, and I built the fucking nightmare fuel there. Um, and at one point, I was looking at it as you guys were walking through, and I was like, oh yeah, it looks pretty bad, and this and that, and then I turned off my Zeus interface so that I would, half-ass be seeing it the way you guys seen it. And dear God, it looked like a fucking massacre. And somebody in my chat that night had mentioned Kosovo. And I don't remember exactly what he was correlating to it, but it did kind of remind me of that. Any of you that are old enough to remember seeing pictures coming out of Kosovo and the Serbs and all of that, Hammer, I'm sure you remember them. It was it was some pretty fucking brutal shit that was going on there, man. And it definitely, that village was definitely reminiscent of that. Kind of almost the same kind of terrain and just bodies everywhere. And yeah, Mosin flat out fucking slaughtered those people. So obviously the ambush never came. You guys, or you made the call to go ahead and move out and said, fuck it, we're still going after the HQ. I know, at least from my eyes, if I were on the ground at that point after seeing that, I'd be thinking, yeah, fuck yeah, we're going after the HQ because these guys got some payback coming. So you guys started pushing west towards the HQ, dismounted the trucks nice and early, got the infantry pushed out in front of them, and I believe first contact came from a roadblock along the westerly MSR, correct?
Yes.
And once that first contact started, that's kind of, as per usual, that's when all hell broke loose. Mortars started coming in shortly after. And I know at one point a GMG started tearing you guys up pretty well. I know that because I was controlling the GMG. And I believe I heard Havoc 2 HQ calling out on PlatoonNet for somebody to find that fucking thing, because it was tearing them up. And I almost took out a truck with it, and they were able to pull it back behind some trees. Luckily, whoever was driving that truck was fucking smart, because majority of the time, you'll catch guys, they'll want to sit there and get in a fucking gunfight when they're in that gun truck because they feel like they're invincible. But I'll tell you what, one of those GMGs will smoke one of our trucks pretty goddamn quickly. So whoever was driving that thing and got it backed up behind the trees, very, very fucking good on you. So all hell broke loose, and you guys started getting hit with IDF. And how is it that how is it you get away from IDF? How do you stop them from fucking smoking you with IDF?
Run.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Get the fuck,
Get the fuck
out of the kill zone. Do not sit there. And yeah, that's pretty much what you guys did. I mean, and I heard you on, company net tell them just keep pushing forward. Get out of the fucking kill zone. Keep pushing. And that's what they did. Like, they would not fucking stop. There was, a couple points where they got a little slowed down from a mass cast here or there. But they would not stop fucking pushing. We were doing everything we could, and we could not stop them. And you guys, I was kept pushing into the town. We're taking armor contacts here and there. What were your thoughts once you got into the town and were actually able to see the HQ area?
I personally never got eyes on the HQ, but basically, I was more concerned about our flanks because we had the northern flank that was basically, we knew everyone to the north of that was enemy territory. I thought the town overall, I mean, it was a pretty standard assault in an urban environment. A lot of the contacts were wiped out in the town that we could see from our elevated weapons squad on the left flank. So that was nice, along with the mortars and fortification. Like, we mortared the roadblock. We mortared couple other areas of interest that were not outside of the actual town itself, but yet and fortified enemy positions that we knew we needed to eliminate. As far as we knew where at this point Thunder and the drone had confirmed where the HQ building was. Um, we moved in that direction, and we cleared through the town relatively quickly. I mean, there was fairly light resistance inside the town. It was more so outside on the outskirts, the defensive positions that they had that were pretty fortified. And then when I got into town, I was more concerned about getting up on our ridge line to the north and just seeing what would be coming our way. So I focused more on the northern flank there because I knew once we were in the town and people were moving at the pace they were moving, I wasn't too concerned about the town as much as I was what's in store for us after we kind of got comfortable in there.
Right, where their friends are, because there was a pretty large hill to the northwest or northeast part of town that really obstructed your guys' view out there to the north, and you guys got people placed up there fairly quick once you were able to clear out the town, and that's when we started sending the counterattack at you guys, and we were sending platoons at a time from the north and from the west. Pretty much every time they were just getting fucking smoked. I mean, there was very little we could do. We were able to get a couple of armor pieces in. There was one BMP that was able to flank all the way around to the south side of where 2-1 was at, and I had just taken control of them and was about ready to start firing on 2-1 when it got hit. I don't know if they hit it with an AT-4 or a Moz hit it or what the gig was, but they were able to smoke it just in time because I was just getting ready to open up on 2-1. And I'm pretty sure it was 2-1 actual because I seen the mic sitting right next to him. So they got pretty lucky there. But we couldn't do shit. I mean, everything we sent at you guys was just mowed down in a matter of a couple of minutes. There was no way that we were getting anything inside of that town aside from a couple of vehicles that got a little bit close. And then one of the groups we pushed in from the west, I had set up a couple of guys with more mortars, kind of like how we carry our mortars. And I was able to get a couple of salvos out with those, and then probably two salvos in, maybe three. They were hit by counter battery from Havoc 4, and Havoc 4 just decimated them. I mean, that was the most on-target fire mission I have ever seen from Havoc 4. They placed two of those mortars pretty much dead nuts center right in the group of tubes. And then Thunder came through and kind of made sure the job was done and hit him with a gun run. So overkill was definitely underrated in that situation.
The rule was really fun too because there was the thing that I love not only working with Task Force Bravo and Havoc 2 on is the supporting assets for that task force are always dead on. Sergeant Tosco has been doing a fantastic job as the mortar NCO, and there was a point where, and frankly, the whole assault from the whole counterattack from the west southwest kind of took me by surprise because number one, Task Force Alpha cleared most of that area earlier. Obviously, there are some remnants from your guys' assault in Task Force Alpha. So my initial impression was that the counterattack was going to be coming from the north. So like I said, I moved up earlier and took more of a vantage point at the northern flank. Then all of a sudden we start getting attacked from the southwest, and I think I said this on Company Net at one point. It's like, I don't know why the hell we're getting attacked from that direction. I thought we were, thought that area was supposed to be clear. So that was a nice little change of pace. But there was one point where someone put a red smoke on these infantry, like an infantry platoon going through the tree line. It was probably over half a click from my position, maybe 200 to 300 meters from the far west infantry squad. And all of a sudden, I'm like, "Hey, Havoc 4." He's like, "Yeah, I see the red smoke. We're putting mortars on it." It's like perfect. And all of a sudden, pop, they're down. It's like, holy crap. I mean, these guys at Task Force Bravo are just on it. and it makes it very easy from a commander standpoint because they know what they need to do. They know it's a forest. They can drop mortars on a forest. I
Yeah.
mean, there's no really worries about that.
Well,
Um,
that's talking about that. As far as dropping mortars and stuff. Like any of you guys that watch the streams fairly often, like I bust fucking Tabasco's balls quite a bit, just because I can, and oftentimes when I'm task force commander and he's running mortars for me, vast majority of the time I give him free reign. I let him self-designate his own fire missions because he knows what he's doing. He's been doing it for quite a while now, and he's very good about it. And so I'd say 90% of the time when I'm running as task force commander and Sergeant Tosco is running Havoc 4, I just tell him to set up somewhere and tell him, hey, you're covering this fucking area, you're clear of self-designated fire missions, hit them with whatever the fuck you got, and they get the fucking job done. So, it takes a little bit of the kind of workload off of me and Dagger, because Dagger's not having to call fire missions. I'm not having to say, yeah, go ahead and give us a fire mission on this or that. Like, no, they can fucking take care of it themselves. So yeah, you guys were able to repel any fucking assault we could come up with. And talking about Task Force Alpha and getting hit from the west and south there. I mean, I guess it's kind of to be expected for there to still be plenty of guys there because we weren't there very long when we went in and took out that artillery position. I mean, I was definitely impressed with Alpha's performance on that as far as, they were still a little slow breaking contact here and there, but like it was a pretty textbook raid. We got in there, set demo, grabbed a POW, and got the fuck out. So yeah, what we left over got to hit you guys, but hey, fuck off. At least you weren't getting hit by 155s.
Yeah, that's for sure. And one thing too, I went back and looked at the Warno, and that's a mistake on my part too, is that I did see that infantry unit to our southwest that was way out from where you guys raided at the artillery
those guys
position.
up on that ridge. Yep.
So I was just like, oh shit, there were guys over there. So I mean, that was a misstep on my part, but nonetheless, we always maintain situational awareness in 360 at all times, so we are prepared for if anything happens. It's just I was in the position that I probably should have been in. And I was focused on Mittens. I was focused on the town of Mittens.
You really wanted that town, didn't you?
Well, number one for the name, and number two, there's a harbor there. And if we could have continued on north up to Mittens, and apparently, I mean, they retreated away from that town regardless of what happened, regardless of our advance in Task Force Bravo.
Yeah, so they didn't want to be that close to you.
Yeah, I don't blame them. So they left the harbor behind. So thankfully, we got that regardless. But yeah, no, it was a fun one, and everybody performed very well that evening. So it was impressive.
Yeah, that's I had heard you at some point saying something about Mittens. I was like, yeah, it's not gonna happen there, Hot Rod. So that was pretty much it for Task Force Bravo. Not really a whole lot to go over with either of the operations this phase. Both of them were successful, done fairly well. Not too many huge mistakes. Bravo was Task Force Bravo as per usual. Those guys have kind of become the badasses. There's really no fucking with them. And if any of you guys listening are in Task Force Bravo, don't get a big fucking head, because I promise you I will squish it. But that being said, the last thing I want to cover for Task Force Bravo is our good buddy Soto. Most of you guys probably are well aware of what was going on last Sunday, what Captain Soto was trying to accomplish. For those of you that aren't, Soto, who is one of our A-10 pilots, he's actually our section lead for the 74th. Soto has family in Puerto Rico. And for those of you guys that don't really, I guess, keep up on any type of world news, Puerto Rico was fucking devastated by hurricanes. Definitely not good. Looks like a goddamn war zone. He was showing me pictures of, his family's neighborhood and his uncle's car shop, just decimated. So Sunday, he did a charity stream to help raise money for a local mission down there. And the proceeds were going towards buying the mission a new van, because their van was completely destroyed in the hurricane. And they used that van to transport people all over the place. And so his goal was to raise some money to help pay for the shipping of the van to get it down to Puerto Rico. And I talked to him the night before, and he had told me that he was going to put the way outside goal of $1,000 up there, but if he could raise even half of that, he would be ecstatic. And any of you guys that have met Soto know that he is the most selfless person you'll ever meet. I mean, just genuine good fucking peoples. And so I took it upon myself to use what little bit of pull I do have in the Arma community to put word out to every single fucking person I possibly could, including all the other realism units. And something that may shock you guys, despite us being, kind of competition when it comes to other Arma units, when it comes to somebody doing good and, trying to help someone out, everybody's pretty goddamn receptive to it. So, not just us, but multiple other Arma Realism units were advertising what was going on their forums. So I told them that night what I had done, and I told them, I don't think you're prepared for what's about to happen Sunday. And believe me, he fucking wasn't. Any of you guys that didn't watch his stream, I highly recommend you go back and watch the YouTube video of it. But all of us basically, where we were pushing as many people as we possibly could to the stream, to Soto's stream. Not just to donate money, but, at least just to watch, to pass the word, let people know what was going on. And as I said, his big goal was $1,000, and he never thought he was going to reach that. And thanks to some amazing fucking people, some of you being in the chat right now, he had $1,000 before his wheels even left the ground, which was fucking great to see. I wasn't able to watch it live, obviously, because I was in the middle of the operation myself, but to go back and watch the stream, it was very, very nice to see him not only hit that goal, but pass that goal before he even left the ground in the bird. And again, thanks to amazing fucking people, by the time he landed and was out of that bird, well, really, by the time I shut my stream down, he was still going for a little bit. But by the time I shut my stream down and got over to his and sent over the contributions from all of you guys from this community, he broke the $3,000 mark. And I've never been happier to see a grown man cry, to tell you the honest truth. It made me smile, definitely. And you guys pulled off what he thought was the impossible. So the whole reason really I bring that up is, one, to just profusely fucking thank you guys that helped out, whether you donated with money or, just hopped in there and watched the stream, shared it on fucking Facebook or Twitter or whatever, just thank you to all of you guys that helped out with that. And also to make everyone aware that that charity is still going. It will not end until Sunday, this coming Sunday after his stream where he'll be Zeusing. So if you guys weren't able to help out with a donation, but you would like to, there's still plenty of time to do so. I don't have a running total right now as to what he has, but I'm sure you guys will see tonight, because tonight, for the squirrel mission that we always do after the podcast, for the first time ever in almost 3 years of at least me personally doing the squirrel missions, we are going to have an A10 in a squirrel mission, which is weird because again, we've never had air assets in a squirrel mission. So Soto is going to be flying the A10 for us tonight in the squirrel mission. So I highly recommend you guys check that out. And Avery, you have an updated total. Go ahead and drop that in chat, please. So yeah, make sure you guys tune in tonight. I don't even care if you watch my stream at all or not. Go fucking watch Soto's stream. And show him some support again tonight. So, that all said and done, and again, thank you guys for all the support you gave him. What I want to talk about tonight is, I guess you could say it's sort of a touchy subject, right, Hammer?
Yeah.
So what I want to talk about tonight, and again, this is just, as with anything, this is, my opinion and Hammer's opinion, not that anybody gives a shit about Hammer's opinion. So we're going to talk about movies and TV shows. So what does Hollywood get right? And what do they get wrong? And what do we let them slack on? Because I watch a lot of shit that Neil deGrasse Tyson does, and he has this kind of mantra when it comes to movies and stuff with science. And I can't believe who the writer was that said this, but he quotes it all the time. And that is, first, get your facts right, and then distort them at your leisure. So basically what that means is, you're doing a big Hollywood movie. We understand it's for entertainment and shit, but first, you need to get the basics right. And then if you want to change a little bit of shit to add drama, to make it more entertaining, okay. But firstly, you need to get the core of the shit correct. So that's what we're going to talk about tonight, is who gets it right and who gets it wrong. So firstly, we'll go with the good, I guess. And this may be a bad idea, because I know this is something we can talk about for fucking hours upon hours.
Yeah.
So, number one, who gets it right in your eyes, Hammer? What's kind of your go-to when it comes to movies first? We'll go over TV shows later, but when it comes to movies, who gets it right?
Well, that's another point too. Is get it right in what aspect? So I mean, as far as like the overall, the first prize overall. I have a place in my heart for Lone Survivor as far as the movie goes. As far as the number one, like getting the attitude of the characters, character development, as well as the tactical and proper research and training and things like that. I think that's my number one overall right now anyway.
I can get behind that. I mean, I definitely dug Lone Survivor. Obviously it helps when the guy that was actually there helps them make the movie. For me, just on the realistic side of things, as far as just the tactics done and stuff like that, not for entertainment, would have to probably be Act of Valor.
Yeah.
Because we all know the entertainment factor was dog shit. Those guys were horrible fucking actors. The reason they were horrible fucking actors is because their day job is actually SEAL team members. So anybody that's watched Act of Valor and been like, wow, that dude is stiff as fuck, he does not know how to act. No, he doesn't know how to act. He knows how to kill motherfuckers very efficiently. That's it. They don't really take you through acting school at Buds. So why Lone Survivor? What sticks out in that one for you?
Well, not only the being drawn to these actual characters that were, based on real people and actually the real events that happened. That's the first thing that intrigues me. The second, though, is the amount of effort the actors put into preparing themselves physically and mentally for this role, because Every time, about the time someone goes through SEAL buds and then SEAL training, they basically fire over 2 million rounds of ammunition. Um, you know, and basically everything they do from a tactical movement engagement standpoint is so drilled into their head. I mean, it's first nature for a lot of those guys. And they, you take people like actors like Mark Wahlberg and the other guys in that movie, and
Ben
they did a really good
Foster and
job. Ben
Taylor
Foster and
Kirsch and
yep,
I forget the other one's name.
Emil, um,
Yeah, the kid from
something.
the Alaska movie.
Yeah. Um, and you take those guys and you try to basically transform them into the baddest motherfuckers this planet's ever seen. And with the blind, and they did this in just a very subtle way of them, doing blind magazine changes and natural bounding and maneuvering, fire maneuver. The iconic scene from that movie, where we were talking about tactical boners earlier, where right where they took first contact and Mark Wahlberg opens the shot, and from that moment they start moving and communicating and bounding, and just like second nature. It's just they're doing it automatically. And when I saw that happen, I was like, that's it. That's what you're supposed to do. Is fucking move and shoot.
Yeah, and anybody that's watched the making of that movie uh, knows this. But if you haven't, go watch it. I definitely recommend it. Peter Berg, the guy that directed it, he's also an actor. Peter Berg went through like painstaking details with Marcus Luttrell and had him by his side pretty much at all times. And when they were doing that specific scene, when they were basically training for that specific scene, Marcus Luttrell was there along with a couple of other SEALs, and they would start their bound, and one guy would turn the wrong way or move just the wrong way, and he would immediately stop him and say, "No, you just got yourself killed. Go back and do it again." And they beat the fuck out of those guys. And for those of you that don't understand exactly how it works when it comes to SEALs and stuff, and not saying that I'm an expert, I was very fucking lucky to be able to interact with the one that worked with us in Texas, but buds, everybody gets hung up on buds. Buds is basic underwater demolition SEAL training. Buds is kind of their entry class. Like, that's, what is it? I believe it's 6 weeks or 8 weeks, something like that. And that's just kind of their
6 months.
Is it that long?
Yeah,
Gosh, I
Buds
didn't think it was that long.
is 3 phases of 2 months, I think.
Oh, there you go. But that's just their entry training. That's not their actual, like, okay, you're going into operational theater, stuff like that. Like, no, that's just to get into the team. You go through that. And even then, you graduate Buds, and they send you to one of the 10 teams, and then you really start training. You don't, you're not just automatically, oh, I'm a SEAL now. I got my trident. Like, no. You go to the teams, and then they work the dog piss out of you, and then they decide if you're actually on that team or not. And those actors got a little fucking taste of that, man. Because again, if you watch that making up, they beat the fuck out of those boys for weeks, and it shows in the movie. And in that exact scene that Hammer was talking about, when they get into first contact and they start peeling, it's badass to watch, because they instantly, they'll set up on a tree, engage with 2-3 rounds, and then immediately be moving because the next guys have already peeled back and they're set. It was just textbook. I don't know any other way to say it. And they did a damn good job of it. Like, that's one of the best scenes I have ever seen in a movie as far as fire maneuver and break contact.
And then near the middle of the movie, it was like, I think it was after the first or second time they fell down the hill. They're at the bottom of the hill and they think they're okay, and all of a sudden they start getting engaged again. Like the situation just keeps getting worse. And they're all beat to shit, concussed, shot, a few of them, all that stuff. And the Lieutenant Murphy gave the order to peel left, and they all echo the order. They all start moving the way they're supposed to. It's like, despite that, what's going on, they've trained so hard for for that situation where it's ingrained in them, where they're just like, absolutely, this is how we're supposed to do it. This is what we're supposed to do. This is how we're going to win the fight. And that
Mm-hmm.
attitude and conviction that they portrayed, I think, was outstanding, as to what it should have been.
Yeah, I mean, it was, that's the definition of muscle memory. That's what those guys were doing. They didn't need to necessarily think about it. They were just doing it. And if any of you have never watched any of Marcus Luttrell's speaking events, they're all over fucking YouTube. But he'll get up there for anywhere from 2 to 3 hours and basically tell his life story and get into a little bit of detail of what happened with Operation Red Wings. And I can tell you now, while the movie Lone Survivor is great, it does not even begin to do justice for what those guys fucking went through. Not even in the slightest bit. And not to take like any credit away from the movie, they did an amazing job. But the real story is just so much more amazing. You can understand why it didn't fit really into a 2-hour movie. But obviously, everyone was lost with the exception of Marcus. But what happened to him personally, as far as the injuries he received, it's mind-boggling that dude is still fucking kicking. When he had fell one of the times, he ended up breaking his back for at least temporarily. For whatever reason, he was basically paralyzed from mid-chest down, and he was crawling around on the ground, packing dirt into wounds and shit. And when he did make it to the village there, where the villagers took him in, he was safe for a little bit, but they do show you, the part where the Taliban come in and snatch him up, and a little bit of what they did, but again, it doesn't go into much detail as far as how severely they tortured him, trying to get information and stuff. And tell you now, like, any of us that think think you're a tough guy or you're a badass motherfucker, Marcus makes you look like a baby back bitch for what that dude went through, and he's still standing there and would have probably went back for more if they would have let him. And that also includes every one of the guys in the original rescue party that went in for him. And that's, again, something that's not really portrayed in the movie. It is portrayed a little bit that the bird was shot down, the Chinook that originally was sent in to get him. If you don't really know the story on it, you wouldn't understand why that's significant. When that Chinook was shot down, it was a full bird. I believe there was 24 guys in it. Multiple guys from SEALs as well as PJs. And that bird wasn't shot down. Marcus had no idea that the bird was even there. He had no idea that it was shot down until weeks later when he was back in Germany. But when that bird was shot down, that was a week or a week and a half into his captivity. It wasn't, kind of overnight like they made it out to be in the movie. He was there for a few weeks, and the military was fighting for weeks to get into that valley and get to him and be able to get a bird in there. And that's how fucking hot that area was, that, it basically stopped the army for 2 weeks before they could finally get in there and get him out. So again, watch the making of and watch a couple of his speaking events as far as what actually went down and stuff, and it'll blow your fucking mind. I can guarantee you that. Now to go on to mine as far as Act of Valor. Again, not exactly the most entertaining movie. Some parts of it, are probably incredibly unrealistic. But the parts they got right were fucking amazing. When they first show up to that camp, and granted, the dude with the fucking suppressed rifle, there's no goddamn 308 rifle that's that goddamn quiet, even with a suppressor, but, whatever. It is what it is. I love that scene when the dude's hands come up out of the water and that's his signal to drop him. And the guy falls back and he catches him before the body hits the water and slowly lowers him in so it doesn't make noise. Like, I don't care if they actually do that or not. That was some rowdy ass shit. Like, if that doesn't fucking at least give you a half chub, there's something wrong. Now, the next best part of that, to me, was the extraction in that same situation. They were getting chased by enemies and vehicles. It was a hot extract, to say the least. And they had 2 SWIC boats that were showing up. And those of you guys that don't know what SWIC is like, they're kind of like SEALs, but they operate with kind of like the old, not necessarily the old, but they're in like the Mark IV and Mark V Mac VSOG or whatever boats that you see us use sometimes in the squirrel missions. They use stuff like that. So they had 2 SWIC boats show up, and I love that scene for 2 reasons. One, they don't dismount the vehicle because they know, okay, you stop the vehicle, it takes X amount of time. Everybody piling out of the truck takes X amount of time. As to where they're SEALs. Their home is the water. They drive the truck straight into the fucking river. And, of course, Hollywood timing being Hollywood timing, just as they drive the truck into the river, that's when the 2 SWIC boats show up. But the 2 SWIC boats show up and roll broadside to the road, basically, and start unleashing holy fucking hell with a couple of Gatling guns and twin 240 Golfs. And if you guys have never seen the destructive power of a 7.62 minigun and 240 Golfs, dual 240 Golfs going at it, watch just that scene in that movie, because it's reflected pretty goddamn well. You've got 2, or essentially 3 7.62 weapon systems, one of them capable of firing close to 5,000 rounds per minute, and that's on one boat, and there was 2 of them. So it was pretty fucking rowdy. That's probably my favorite scene from the entire movie, aside from the opening dialogue or voiceover or whatever, when he's talking about how every man has his mythos and so on. Like, that's some fucking, that whole letter, if you guys have never seen it, it's all over online, the letter that was written for that. Read that letter, and that's some fucking heart-wrenching shit, man. And that was the movie Act of Valor that they did a few years back with actual retired Navy SEALs. Or actually, I don't know if all of them are retired. I would have to assume, because I don't see the DOD signing off leave to go be in a movie. But yeah, they did it a few years ago. It's called Act of Valor. So those are 2 of the movies that we think got it done really well. And Rube, thank you very much for the dollar, brother. Appreciate the support to the channel. What other movies, kind of off the top of your head, would you say did it pretty well, but maybe not quite as good as Lone Survivor?
I would say a couple that come to mind are going to be We Were Soldiers, and then obviously Saving Private Ryan. I think those are the top, the other, easily in my top 5.
Well, and you bring up Saving Private Ryan, and we were talking about this before the stream, and we'll get into Band of Brothers obviously in a little bit, but what is the common denominator aside from Spielberg and fucking Tom Hanks? What is the common denominator between Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan?
Dale fucking die.
Dale fucking die. Any of you guys that don't know who Dale Dye is, aside from being like one of my personal fucking heroes, Dale Dye was, what was he saying? He hit captain, was it?
Yes.
Okay, so Dale was a captain in the Marines during Vietnam. I had thought he was a colonel. The reason I thought he was a colonel was because he played a colonel in actually both Band of Brothers and Saving Private Ryan. But he is the white-haired guy with the mustache that you see in Band of Brothers, the colonel that basically gives Richard Winters command of Easy Company. That is Dale Dye. Dale Dye is a military advisor for all kinds of things, not just movies, also a fuck ton of video games. He's a voice actor. He's an actor himself. I wish he acted in more movies because he's fucking awesome. But that dude's dedication to getting things right is unrivaled by anyone I've seen as far as a military advisor. Because if it ain't fucking perfect, he ain't letting that shit fly. And that's reflected, like, if you ever watch the making of Saving Private Ryan, like, he put those guys through it, and he didn't put them through it like, oh, cushy Hollywood style. Like, no, you're living like they lived in 1942, preparing to fucking go to war. And that dude is a badass. And Saving Private Ryan is one of those where, yeah, the whole, going to get a lone soldier, sending out these guys to get a lone soldier, yeah, it's, unrealistic and so on, and making a captain be the CO of a 8-man unit going out there, yeah, probably unrealistic, or at least nowadays would be unrealistic. I don't know, maybe in the 40s it was different. But they, in that movie, if you watch when they, at the beach landing scene, when they get pushed up to one of the bunkers, he puts his mirror on a knife with a piece of bubble gum, looks around the corner, and he tells a guy to move to a position. And Hammer actually pointed this out. And I can't think of anybody else that's done it. Do you remember what you were talking about when he told him to move?
Is it the defilade on the far side there?
Yeah.
Yeah,
so he told, I believe it was Jackson, he told to move into the defilade on the far side to get a shot on him with the Springfield. And yeah, I can't, at least off the top of my head, obviously it's not like I know every line of every goddamn military movie ever made. But that one does stick out. Like, I can't really think of another movie where they, talk about defilade. Granted, that's pretty much the only time they say anything about it. We talk about it fucking non-stop, pretty much. But, yeah, I can't think of another movie where they really talk about defilade. How would I be if I directed a military film? It would probably never get made. That's how I would be. And yes, as GRE brings up in chat there, Black Hawk Down. That is yet another one that is pretty goddamn good. Yeah, there is faults with it. No, this is one that's more kind of our era as far as when it happened and stuff like that. I remember the news reports from Mogadishu. I believe I was around middle school, maybe a little bit before middle school. I can't remember for sure. But yeah, that one was pretty goddamn realistic, especially the actual combat itself in it. I really like that, guys didn't have optics and shit like that. Like, they kept true to the equipment that they were using. They didn't fuck that up. The only problem I had, and still to this day have, with Black Hawk Down is one scene in particular, and it's always the scene that people love, and that is when Eric Bana, who is playing one of the Delta guys, is at the chow line and holds up his finger and says, "This is my safety." Yeah, makes for a great movie and so on. As far as I can tell, Eric Bana is supposed to be an enlisted guy. He's not running the platoon of Delta or anything like that, so I don't think he was any type of officer. But at least from memory, the guy he says that to was Sergeant Major, wasn't he? Or was he first sergeant? I can't remember. He was an E8 or E9, something like that.
Well, he was a captain. The guy who called out the safety thing was a captain. He was the ranger.
Oh, yeah, he was,
commander of a company.
Yeah, I was thinking it was the guy they were fucking making fun of, but yeah, it was a captain. So yeah, he sure as shit did not outrank him, because you're not gonna have a fucking major in Delta, in theater like that, not going out there fucking solo and shit. Um, so the reason I bring that up, but that's my one problem with that movie. That's my major problem. Is just kind of how they depicted that he was just like, yeah, fuck off. I do what I want. It's like, yeah, he is Delta. He is special forces and stuff, but he's not gonna fucking basically tell an officer to go fuck himself. Like, that's not how it works. Like, whether you're special forces or not, rank is a fucking rank, and you're not gonna bust off at the mouth to a fucking captain, especially a captain. But yeah, so that's the only real problem I have with that one, is just kind of the disrespect that's shown there. And then of course, that being a big Hollywood movie, everybody thinking that, oh yeah, Delta's just a bunch of undisciplined cowboys, and do whatever the fuck they please. Like, yeah, on base they pretty much do what they want, but they don't just get carte blanche to talk shit to officers. That's not the way the military works. I'm sorry. Yeah, exactly, as Vertigo said, SF guys tend to be incredibly respectful, especially to other services, like non-special forces guys. Like, at least what guys I've met, and especially like if you listen to like Jocko Willink's podcast and stuff, like those guys in SOF, they admire the shit and respect the shit out of guys in normal like line infantry and shit like that. So yeah, I hate when movies show them as being like these disrespectful fucking badasses that just do whatever they want and don't give a shit what anybody thinks. It's not how it works, and it always pisses me off, because that, yeah, that makes the 13-year-old have, think, yeah, I'm gonna go special forces so I can tell a fucking colonel to go fuck himself, and then they actually get into the military and realize, oh, that ain't how things work out, and they end up getting fucking dropped after 2 years because they went into it expecting something completely fucking different. So that being said, one of the last ones I want to bring up, and this isn't really for like the combat or anything like that, I have to bring up FMJ, Full Metal Jacket. Obviously use Gunny's voice for all of my alerts on the channel here, so everybody knows I'm a fan of him. But the reason I bring up FMJ is not necessarily because of what it got right. Don't get me wrong, R. Lee Ermey does an amazing job portraying drill instructor, but what you don't really see in Full Metal Jacket is the rest of the cadre. For those of you guys that don't know, there's never just a single drill instructor or a single drill sergeant. There's an entire cadre. You have to think about the fact that they're dealing with a platoon or multiple platoons of guys. It's not just one instructor, and that's the thing I really didn't like about Full Metal Jacket. And again, Ermey's amazing in it, but it's not just him. Granted, they made it out to be just him for the movie so that he would get fucking smoked by Gomer Pyle. Spoilers, if you haven't seen it, go fuck yourself and leave my channel now, please. But the reason I bring that up is because before Full Metal Jacket, there was another movie that R. Lee Ermey did that nailed it pretty much perfectly, and not a lot of people know it because it's an old fucking movie. And that movie is Boys in Company C. Hammer, have you ever seen that one?
Yeah, a long time ago, but yes.
For those of you guys that haven't seen it, Boys in Company C is basically Full Metal Jacket before Full Metal Jacket. Personally, I think it was pretty much the reason that Ermey was hired as the advisor for Full Metal Jacket before they actually made him an actor in it. Which, for those of you guys that don't know, R. Lee Ermey wasn't originally going to be in Full Metal Jacket. He was just the military advisor, and then they fell in love with him because, well, he's R. Lee fucking Ermey, and they made him Gunnery Sergeant Hartman. But he did that movie called Boys in Company C, where he was another drill instructor for the Marines, But that had basically had a cadre with him. There was only, I think, one other drill instructor that had a speaking role in the movie, and he was fucking awesome in it. But yeah, he had an actual cadre there. So for those of you guys that want kind of a look into what it would have been like to go through Marine Basic back in the late 1960s, early 70s, watch Boys in Company C, because at least from relayed via my father who went through at that time, it's pretty goddamn realistic. Granted, my father was Army, not Marine, but still. So again, Full Metal Jacket, pretty decent movie. Obviously, R. Lee Ermey is the best fucking part about the entire movie. But they did get something that, at least to me, is important. So that takes us into TV. And we already mentioned Band of Brothers. Hammer, why is that right up top there for you?
I mean, overall, I would place it at the top of my list for any war-based movie or TV show. Number one is it's a true story based off of, Easy Company 506. Number two, the characters and the actors, how they portrayed the characters and their likability, and how I was invested into every single person in that company by the end of the show, and just to see what they go through. So number two is emotionally invested. Number three was the attention to detail with gear, tactics, and overall command and control and leadership. That they touched on all of those extremely well. And yeah, it's just a gem of a series, absolutely.
Yeah. And that's who was it that we just lost? I feel like such a dick for not remembering his fucking name now. Malarkey. Those of you guys that have seen Band of Brothers as many fucking times as me and Hammer have, those guys almost feel like you fucking know them. And not that long ago, what was it? Maybe a couple weeks ago now. Malarkey passed away, and he's one of the last surviving guys from Easy Company. Now for me, Band of Brothers, obviously I watched it when it came out and was just blown away by it. I mean, anybody that says it's a bad series or something, you should probably have yourself tested for mental disabilities. But when it first came out, I thought it was great, so on and so forth. I didn't really get as attached to it until my grandfather's 85th birthday. And the reason for that being, I always knew that my grandfather was in the Army, was in World War II, but he never talked about it. And I don't think it was because he had PTSD or anything like that. He didn't carry himself that way. But my grandfather was a very, very religious man. But that happened after he came home, and he hated the idea of war and combat. He didn't necessarily, he wasn't all against military or anything like that. He hated the idea of human beings killing other human beings. Despite basically raising a military family. But again, he never talked about it. I never knew what unit he was in, where he was at, what he did, nothing like that. I knew he had went to Germany, but that was it. So for his 85th birthday, all of his records, his medals and all of that had been burned up in a house fire when my dad was a kid. But for his 85th birthday, we got a hold of the Army and were able to get his medals and all of his documentation reissued, which is something they do in the event of catastrophic loss like that. So this was all a surprise to him. So it all came to my aunt's house, I believe, is where it was all sent. And we ended up going over there to check it out, and they sent it in a really, really nice shadow box. Had a flag with it as well. And we got looking at it, and when I looked at the patch, his unit patch, I immediately recognized it. And I looked, and it was a 506 patch. The same one that you guys see on our forums and stuff like that. The parachute with the lightning bolt and everything. But it was the old school version of it. It has been updated. And I knew I had seen that before. So I started doing some digging and realized, oh yeah, okay, so that was the Band of Brothers guys. And did more research into it, and then looking through the documentation that had been reissued with the medals and awards, and I realized that my grandfather was Dog Company 506. So he was in one of the sister companies of the, Band of Brothers. He was one of the replacements. So for any of you guys that seen Band of Brothers, you'd know what I'm talking about with the replacements, especially after Market Garden. A lot of replacements came into the 506. They lost a lot of fucking guys. And between Market Garden and D-Day, they lost a lot of fucking guys. And my grandfather was one of those replacements that came into Dog Company. And once I got older, I was probably in my 20s, early 20s, when I finally got my grandfather to talk about it. And he joked with me that he was parachute infantry and never once jumped out of an airplane aside from training. He rode a boat over there, was injured, and rode a boat back home. Never did a combat jump, even though he was parachute infantry. And the only reason he joined the 506 was for the extra pay to help take care of his family. Because at that time, when he first joined, he was 17 years old and was providing for his family because his father had died in a collapse in the coal mine. He grew up in Kentucky. Whole family worked the coal mine. Coal mine collapsed. He actually went in and helped dig his father's body out. When World War II broke out, he waited until he was 17 so he could go enlist, and joined up and went over to Germany. And he fought in Bastogne, where he was shot 3 times. And when he was shot the 3rd time is when it dropped him, and he fell onto a log and actually broke his back. And it basically paralyzed him from the waist down. Luckily it wasn't permanently. But he crawled his way into a foxhole and hung out in the foxhole until the artillery stopped, and they were able to get him out. And of his rifle squad, he was the only one that made it out of Bastogne. So 8 guys, well, 9. He was the only one that made it out of Bastogne alive, and ended up getting the Purple Hearts, and also ended up getting the Bronze Star for saving, I believe it was his platoon leader that he ended up, and this was something he briefly talked about, was they had got infantry in close on him because of all the fog, and they were so low on ammunition. He was completely out of ammunition and ended up having to beat a guy with his entrenching shovel. And the guy that he beat to death was sneaking up on his platoon leader, who was asleep in his foxhole. My grandfather was on watch, and he beat the guy to death that was sneaking up on his platoon leader, and ended up getting the Bronze Star for that. So, yeah, I thought that was a cool little story, at least personal tie-in for me to Band of Brothers. And very long-winded, my apologies.
It's pretty fucking insane, though. I mean, just that connection. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking, going back to Band of Brothers, I mean, it's Dog Company, that's Spears. I mean, was a pretty major character, was Dog Company CEO during Bastogne. And then near the end, during the assault on Foy,
he was a total fucking badass.
Oh, God, he was a fucking badass, because, like, the Easy Company CEO was losing it. They're pinned down. The assault wasn't going well. They weren't moving. They were under IDF artillery and all that stuff pinned down. And then Winters, who was at the time acting battalion commander of the 2nd Battalion of the 506th, brought Spears over and says, "Get out there and relieve Dyke." And ever since then, he went from Dog Company, became Easy Company CO.
Good old Ronald Spears.
That would be a type of guy I would not want to run across. So that's fucking crazy.
Shit, any one of those guys I would not want to run across. Mainly being gonorrhea. Even though that dude lost a leg, I'm pretty sure he could still kick your ass if he were still with us. Because even when they did Band of Brothers and they were doing the interviews at the end, well, Gonorrhea was getting up there in age, but I'm pretty sure that old man would still beat the shit out of me.
So iconic.
Yeah.
It's like because they had those interviews at the beginning of this at the shows and stuff, and
they were just such amazing characters. Like
exactly.
It's like these guys, you can't write this shit. Like even if you came up with a fucking movie idea like this, it wouldn't be as good as what these guys' real lives were.
Yeah, it's just nuts, and it's so funny. Not funny, but they had the interviews, and all of a sudden Gonorrhea comes on, or Garnier, Wild Bill Garnier, and essentially what happened, it's just like, oh, that guy is before the name even popped up on the screen, it's like that's Wild Bill right there. That's the Philadelphia accent and the.
Well, that's why I loved the way they did that. If you watch the series, they have the interview. They're talking to somebody at the start of the episode about basically what's going down in that episode. And then it's not until the very end, the 10th and final episode, Eagle's Nest, or actually, no, I think 10th and final was Points, where they reveal who each one of those guys are. They finally put their names up on screen, because all the other times it's just them sitting there talking. You have no idea who they are. So then the final episode, they get a little more in-depth with the interviews and actually show everybody's name. And you finally get to put a name to that face and go, oh, yeah, okay, so that's so-and-so. Yeah, I just watched, what happened to him. And that's where it brings in, hands down, the most poignant part of the entire 10-episode series. A little over 10 episodes, or 10 hours of TV show, and the last 30 seconds of it is the most heart-wrenching shit I've probably ever seen on TV when it comes to, obviously besides real-life tragedies and shit. And that is the now infamous scene of Winters talking about that letter. And he says the line of, my grandson asked me, Grandpa, were you a hero in the war? And he kind of chokes up a little bit and says, no, but I served with a company of heroes. And I don't care if you're the most hair-chested, beer-drinking, badass motherfucker on the planet. If that doesn't tug at your fucking heartstrings, you're not human. Because I'll admit openly, I get fucking choked up every single time I watch it. And I watch that shit probably once a year.
Yeah, it still gets me.
Yeah, it's just so telling of. I mean, really, every generation of military guys, I think, kind of have that same mentality. But it's so telling of who Winters was as a person, not just as a leader, but as a person. That dude was just an amazing fucking human being. And obviously, Winters has kind of a tie to us in the sense that, we're, portraying the 506th, and he's kind of the godfather, if you will, of the 506th. He's the reason the 506th is ran the way it is today. Currahee, all of that stuff comes from that era, that generation of guys. And the lead from the front, follow me. That was Winters. And that phrase came about from something that I'm not sure whether or not they did finally end up awarding him with the CMH posthumously. I was pissed off when they announced that they were putting him up for the CMH posthumously. Not because I didn't think he didn't deserve it. Obviously, he fucking deserved it. But I was pissed off that they didn't do it while he was still fucking alive. But the award recommendation was for the charge he led there in Holland, I believe it was, when they ran into, I think it was an entire fucking battalion of SS they ran into, something along those lines. It was either another regiment or another battalion. This was before he was battalion commander for Easy Company, or for 2nd Battalion. This was when he was still the company commander, I believe. But he led a charge and ran up over this dike and began engaging these guys. And they weren't putting him up for the award recommendation because of him, running up over that dike and engaging those guys. It was because of his tactics in that situation and the fact that I believe he only had 20 guys at the start of the engagement. Obviously, more reinforcements came after shit started kicking off, but at the start of the engagement, he only had 20 guys. And by the time they were done, Easy Company captured a couple hundred German troops, which is pretty fucking nuts, especially considering that was getting a little later on in the war. So they weren't real keen on surrendering really ever, but especially at that point, they were more so, they were starting to kind of lean towards that scorched earth mentality of nobody surrenders, we fight to the fucking death. And so they wanted to award him the CMH. And again, I don't know if he ever ended up receiving that or not, but I was pissed off that they wanted to give it to him after he had already passed away, and they didn't do it while he was still fucking alive.
Yeah, there's been a couple attempts actually to try and get him the Medal of Honor. The first one died in committee, I think, and I think the second one died in legislative process as well. But I think even his Distinguished Service Cross that he got for the Breakcore assault, they were limiting, I think, one Medal of Honor per regiment, I want to say.
Oh, yeah.
And there was just too much good shit going on where they literally picked between. Yeah.
Well, that was kind of the downfall, not really downfall, because obviously it's a good thing, but not nearly as many guys from not only Easy Company, but from the entirety of 2nd Battalion got recognized for what they did. Not nearly as many did as what should have, because of the fact that they did so much that the what was it, the War Committee then? I can't remember the actual name of the Office of War something. I can't remember the name of it, but basically, like Hammer said, they were limiting how many fucking medals they were giving out to guys, because in that situation, the 506 just, it's not even that they steamrolled everything, it's just people couldn't believe what they were accomplishing, being outnumbered pretty much at all fucking times. And Breakcore is a perfect example of that. I mean, in my mind, he did receive, actually, I think 4 or 5 of them ended up receiving medals for Breakcore, but it was nowhere near enough for what those guys did. For those of you not familiar with it, we talked about it a little bit actually on the last podcast me and Leroy did. But Breakcore was a small area inland from the beach, and they housed multiple German artillery guns that were pounding the beach. And Winters, at the time, who was a platoon leader, was then placed, at least temporarily, in command as company commander, because the company commander was fucking MIA. Nobody knew where he was at. But they tasked him to go out and eliminate these German guns. And me and Hammer were talking about this before, and again I mentioned it last week on the stream with LaRue, that their assault on Breakcore Manor was quite literally textbook of assaulting a fixed position. And when I say literally textbook, I mean they wrote the fucking textbook of assaulting a fixed position based upon what Richard Winters did that day in France. So his contributions to the U.S. Army were not just that he was an amazing leader of infantry and, got a lot of shit done. They, again, literally wrote the fucking book on his tactics. Now, another one that I want to touch on, Band of Brothers, obviously everybody's fucking favorite. But one that I hold very close to Band of Brothers is Generation Kill. And I've brought up Generation Kill before on a past podcast when I was talking with Shannon. the thing I love about Generation Kill was not the combat, them engaging guys, the tactics they use, stuff like that. It was the camaraderie and the brotherhood that they were able to capture in that show, and the downtime, because everybody focuses on the combat, on all the big explosions and stuff. They don't focus on the shit in between when you're riding in convoy for 6 fucking hours and you've got nothing to do but sit there and stare at the fucking dude next to you in the truck and talk about shit that you've talked about 18 million times before that. And they captured that so fucking well. And that's another one right there with Band of Brothers that I watch probably once a year or so. And I know you've probably seen it multiple times, right, Hammer?
Way too many.
Yeah. Now, aside from those two, I can't really think of a TV show that really can be held up there with those two. I mean, I think those are pretty much it. Some guys may say the Pacific. I myself, I never got through the Pacific. I went through the first couple episodes, and I couldn't deal with the at-home drama to, give mom something to cry about because, dad wanted to sit there and watch this, so mom's got to have something there too. I couldn't get behind it. And I think it was kind of the same for you, right, Hammer?
Yeah, I think I got through episode 7, and I don't know why. It's not that I hated it. It's just it didn't. I don't know. Maybe I was expecting another Band of Brothers, and held it to that standard. It just didn't get there, in my opinion.
To me, also, it didn't have the same characters. Like I didn't instantly fucking fall in love with those characters like I did with Band of Brothers. And like you said, that's what I was expecting. I was expecting another, Wild Bill, another gonorrhea, another bullshit or horseshit or whatever you called malarkey. So I was expecting another one of those, and it wasn't to me. So I can't say that the Pacific was right there with Band of Brothers. I know a lot of the same guys worked on it. It wasn't the same. So we know now, all right, what movies we like, what TV shows we like, which ones did it right. So, which ones do we think got it wrong? Aside from obviously, shit like Rambo or, the 80s fucking action flick stuff. Hammer, what's kind of your go-to as to, don't ever watch this fucking movie?
Well, right now I have one at the top of my mind because it's a original series on Netflix that just came out called Sandcastle. I watched 2 episodes of that, and I was just like, holy shit, this is just fucking trash. I mean, and while the story, I'm sure the story, people like it, all that sort of stuff, but, I mean, they're going in, invading Iraq with up-armored Humvees, and they're walking down the middle of the street doing patrols under fire. It's like, I don't know if they had any sort of, if it was budgetary concerns or if it was they didn't have the right advisors. I don't know, but it's just something I couldn't stand to watch anymore. So I just flat out stopped.
Well, did they spend their budget on a fucking time machine to go get fucking up-armored Humvees to invade a country that we invaded without unarmored Humvees? Or without armored Humvees?
I don't know.
So
it's just little
called
like that.
It was called Sandcastle?
Yeah, Sandcastle. I think it's fairly new on Netflix.
Yeah, I've never heard of it, but it's a horrible fucking name. I mean, you might as well just call it the Sandbox. And it's what the rest of us fucking called it.
Well, the thing is, I mean, I'm running out of good ones to watch, so it's like I have to watch something, and it's, that was awful. So I don't recommend that.
Well, one of mine is kind of along the same lines. I mean, as far as movies per se, I don't really know if there's that many movies that I can call out, because most of the movies that like get it wrong, it's so blatantly obvious that it's fucking wrong that they just didn't give a shit in the first place. There's no sense in even mentioning it. Shit like, Sniper and stuff like that with Tom Berenger, just shit like that. It's
don't
they didn't
on
give
Sniper.
a fuck in the first place. Well, I mean, I love me some Billy Zane just like the fucking next guy, but still. But the the first one I have on my list is a show called Six. It's a show that, you know, when it came out, guys were constantly asking us about it. They were asking me in the streams all the time. They were asking fucking Drum about it all the time. If we had seen this show Six, it was badass. It was about SEAL Team 6, this and that. So, firstly, let's address SEAL Team 6. Okay. Everybody got on SEAL Team 6's dick like their fucking name was Trojan after the Osama bin Laden raid. Okay. Now, the thing that most people don't understand, like, SEAL Team 6, Dev Grew, all of that stuff, okay, it's not like you guys think it is, or not necessarily you guys, but it's not like people think it is. Like, SEAL Team 6 is exactly that. They're team number 6 out of 10. There are 10 SEAL teams, guys. All right, SEAL Team 6 is not necessarily that much more important or that much more special. The whole Dev Crew thing is just what they were working on in this special sector. This team got pulled in to do this. It wasn't that, oh, they're the best of the absolute best of the best of the best fucking 100%. Like, no, they're all SEAL teams. They're all trained to do the exact same things. So, firstly, leave it alone with the fucking SEAL Team 6 shit, because you sound like an uneducated fucking retard, because you don't know what you're talking about. Now, that being said, the show 6, apparently, you know, it's based on SEAL Team 6, because, again, they were popular after the Osama shit. Now, I will tell you guys now, my opinion on this show is solely based on the first 10 minutes of it, because that is all I made it through. I shut it off after 10 minutes. So, maybe I am completely fucking wrong on this, and they somehow turned it around 180 degrees in the following episodes. I have no idea, again, because I shut it off. And I would assume they didn't, because I don't think it's still running. So, if anybody hasn't seen it, the show opens up, at least from memory, again, this has been a little bit, so from memory, the show opens up, and it's U.S. Army troops in contact from basically all sides, and they're huddled down next to a bunch of Max Pros. So I'm like, okay, well, troops engaged, all right, cool. Then I start looking a little closer. Every single one of these U.S. Army troops has a suppressor on his weapon. I'm like, okay, well, they're all running suppressors. They've got to be Delta, Green Beret, something along those lines. Yeah, well, they would have to be one of those two. Because Ranger is technically Special Forces, but it's not, you know, super secret squirrel shit. So they're either Delta or Green Berets. Plus they have ANA forces there, Afghan National Army. So they're working with native forces, so I'm assuming, okay, yeah, they're special forces training the ANA. They got ambushed, all right? This is completely logical scenario. I don't think all of them would have suppressors on, and even if they did all have suppressors, the ANA all have AK-47s. You have no reason to be using that suppressor or subsonic ammo, so you might as well fucking peel that suppressor off, load in a real fucking magazine, and start going to work. But that being said, you know, I'm all right. This is a logical situation, or, you know, a realistic situation. Well, then they call for their QRF, or call for help, whatever. I don't even remember if they actually said QRF, but they call for help. Who answers the call? Well, but of course it's SEAL Team 6, because they're the fucking, you know, the object of the show. And immediately I'm thinking, one, boy, are they lucky that a SEAL team just happens to be riding along in a fucking Chinook a couple clicks away from where they're at. That is fucking divine intervention if I have ever seen it. And I don't even believe in God. But you're telling me that U.S. Army troops working with national or Native Army, they call for help, and the help that's sent is Navy SEALs? There's maybe 2 squads worth of Army troops sitting here. Where in the fuck is their QRF? Where is the rest of their platoon? Where's the rest of their company? Where's the rest of their fucking battalion? That's not how it works. Like, a U.S. Army unit calls for backup, an Army unit is going to show up. They're not going to call the Navy and say, hey, we need you to come bail our guys out. Like, no, they have their own fucking troops there. Because, believe it or not, the U.S. Army doesn't operate in a squad or as two squads. No, they operate as fucking divisions or battalion, or now battalion combat teams. But, so yeah, that was a big fucking red flag. Like, right off of Jump Street. Like, okay, U.S. Army Special Forces are calling for help, and they send in Navy SEALs rather than their QRF that in actuality would be sitting there next to the fucking helicopters waiting for that call. So, alright, is what it is. Again, maybe they just got incredibly fucking lucky. The SEALs just happened to be fucking 2 clicks away, so they're like, yeah, we'll swing in there real quick with our Chinook and fucking help them out, you know? So they drop the SEALs off a little ways away. SEALs come in on foot, and they're able to get up on this elevated position overlooking where these guys are in the trucks. Now, the trucks are lined up in kind of your typical file, even though the trucks are like fucking damn near bumper to bumper to each other. And then on the other side of the trucks is a couple of mud huts. So SEALs are sitting up on this hill. In between them and the mud huts are the trucks parallel to them. All right, so they start engaging contacts all around the Army troops. And of course, you know, none of the Afghanis are able to hit them, despite some of them being made out to look like they're 20 fucking feet away from them. They can't hit them with their AK-47 or a grenade or a fucking RPG, nothing. So they start slaughtering motherfuckers wholesale. And then this taco truck shows up, and actually I think this was before the SEALs were even called. This may have been before the shit really started. I think this was what kicked off the ambush. Anyway, the reason I bring that up, this taco truck shows up. I believe it was a red Toyota pickup. Comes rolling up to the front of this military convoy, and the truck stops. Okay, so they're looking at the truck, and there's a woman behind the wheel wearing her full get up and everything, and one of the Afghan Army members starts approaching the truck, and the U.S. Army guys are yelling at him not to go near the truck, not to go near the truck. Now all of us know, okay, so that's a VBIED, that's why they're yelling at him not to go at the truck, but he's gonna walk over there and get fucking blown up anyways because he's a retarded Afghani. You know, that's what they want us to believe. Okay, red flag number 1, why in the fuck is a female driving the truck? I don't know how many of you have ever been in country, but yeah, that chick ain't driving no fucking truck. And if she is, there's immediately a problem. That truck is not getting anywhere within 100 goddamn meters of friendly forces. 2, you're telling me an ANA member, a native Afghani, is going to see a female driving a truck in what is obviously an ambush area. You're telling me he is going to approach that truck close enough to get blown the fuck up by it? No. Sorry. No. I personally wasn't in Afghanistan, but I know enough from working with native forces. They're a whole lot more mistrusting of motherfuckers than we are. They have looser fucking regs when it comes to ROE than we do. So, yeah, no fucking way is that guy approaching that truck so he can get blown the hell up. But, of course he does. It blows up, starts the fucking ambush, and then all hell breaks loose. So, again, jumping back forward to when the SEALs show up, start engaging everybody. Well, then there's a guy inside of one of the mud huts shooting through the window, engaging the guys at the trucks. So, what in this situation do the SEALs do? Do the SEALs engage the guy in the window with their rifles? No. Do they take the Mark 48 and start suppressing the window with a fucking machine gun? No. One of them grabs a law and fires it through the window and smokes the guy with the law. And of course there's this big, huge, fiery gasoline explosion because everybody knows HE blows up like a goddamn 5-gallon gas can. And that was his choice to eliminate that threat inside of a mud hut was to shoot a law in there and take him out. Now, never mind the fact that, again, the SEALs are in an elevated position on the other side of the Max Pros. So in between the guy firing the law and the mud hut he's shooting into is a Max Pro. If you guys have never been up close to a Max Pro, those things are massive. Okay, they're damn near 15 feet tall. Actually, they may be 15 feet tall, counting the goddamn turret. So this dude decides to take a shot basically over the hood of this massive truck that friendlies are hiding behind and put a rocket into a fucking 3x2 window. An unguided rocket firing over a 5-ton chunk of steel to go through a 3x2 window. That dude is A, incredibly fucking talented with a law, B, the dumbest motherfucker on the planet. Because I'm sorry, I'm not going to take the chance of firing even if it is HE, I'm not going to take the chance of firing an HE unguided rocket that close to essentially the broadside of a fucking barn to put it in a window to kill a guy that I could just as easily yell over to my buddy that's holding a fucking Mark 48 machine gun and tell him, hey, spray the fucking wall. Because that machine gun is going to go right through that fucking mud. So then I shut it off. So that was my experience with the TV show 6. So no, I did not enjoy it. No, I have not watched more of it. And no, I do not think it's fucking cool. Hammer, did you get to see any of that show? Did you ever watch any of it?
No, and thankfully.
Yeah, you lucky son of a bitch. That was 10 minutes of my life I'll never get back.
To be fair, I did watch Sandcastle, though, so...
Yeah,
I'll save you that
I guess
one.
we're kind of even. Well, actually, we're not even, because that takes me on to the next show. And this is a brand new show, and I highly, highly fucking recommend you to watch the first episode. Actually, you don't even need to watch the first episode, because I'm going to break down the fucking opening for it right now.
Oh boy.
So, new show. It's called SEAL Team. Because again, SEALs are the new fucking hotness, thanks to fucking Osama. So, this one actually has someone I like in it, David Boreanaz. Because Angel is a badass. And if you think otherwise, go fuck yourself. So it has David Boreanaz in it. He's the... I don't know. I don't even know what the hell he was supposed to be. I'm guessing he's supposed to be the team leader. But anyways, show starts off with him sitting in a psychiatrist's office. All right, problem number fucking 1 for me. Like, stop with the fucking, oh, we have to address this. And fuck off. All right. Anyways, the psychiatrist, she's asking him questions about how his buddy got killed, and he's visibly, upset by it, so she keeps pushing on it because she's, got to fix his problems. And then it busts into the show, basically him telling her the story and it reliving what had happened. So, kicks off with them on a fairly large cargo ship. One of the big ones that carry the fucking sea cans. And they're inside of one of the Connex boxes, and there's something in there, a bunch of arms and munitions and shit, like missiles and everything that they need to plant demo on and get out of there. All right, well, whatever. Sure, the fucking highly, likely that something like that could be going down. So they're planting demo, and one of the other guys comes walking up to him and says, hey, there's a safe in the bridge. Or in the captain's quarters, something. We should, pop it open and see what's in there. Okay. One, when did Navy SEALs become safe crackers? Like, I want to know what part of training takes them through cracking safes. 2, okay, they don't crack the safe. They blast it open. Alright. So what do they blast it open with? Because det cord isn't going to blow the door off a safe. And when you see it in the show, the door isn't... I don't think the door was blown off. Like, it was just like the locking mechanism. Somehow they knew exactly where it was at, and they blew it off of there. But I'm still curious as to what they blew it off of there with. Because if they're going there to demo something, the only demo they're going to be carrying is along the lines of like the M112s that we carry. So, you know, half-pound fucking block of C4. You put that much C4 on a safe, it's going to do more than blow the fucking door off of it. It's going to incinerate everything inside the motherfucker. So, alright, there's problem number one, but whatever. I'll give you give you a little bit of freedom on that one. So they get the stuff inside the safe. Now it's time to exfil. Alright, so they're going to exfil. They throw the fucking emergency escape ladder down the side of the boat. And they start climbing down the side of the boat. Now, right before this, the team leader had asked the guys that are still on their rib what the status was of the patrol boats or whatever. And they show you this shot of these like 50-foot, maybe 75-foot fishing boats patrolling around this large cargo ship. And, you know, gives you the assumption, all right, these are the bad guys in the patrol boats, you know, basically keeping guard of the cargo ship because it has a bunch of missiles on it. I seen that, and I immediately wondered how in the flying fuck did they get a rib with a 25-horse outboard engine up to that fucking cargo ship without any of the guys in these boats hearing it? Because those things aren't exactly quiet. Like, yeah, they're quieter than, you know, probably the outboard engine you can go buy at fucking Bass Pro Shop, but they're not silent. Like, they still hit waves and shit, you know. But whatever, somehow they managed to sneak a fucking 15-foot long rubber boat in there. Okay. So they're extracting, they're climbing down the ladder. Of course, as they're climbing down the ladder, now the guys on the patrol boats finally open their eyeballs and are able to see this boat sitting right next to the cargo ship they're supposed to be protecting. Now, the first boat that opens up on them has a fucking dishcum mounted on the front of it. Looks like one of the fucking boats that fucking Wee Woo makes for us on goddamn Squirrel Days. So he starts engaging these guys on the side of a boat. Okay, it's 2 targets on the side of a cargo ship. Somehow he can hit everywhere around them, but not hit them. It's amazing how they're able to do that. I'm pretty sure they're like stormtroopers and do it on purpose. So, while these guys are climbing down the ladder, David Boreanaz basically turns and starts looking at this boat, engaging. You see the big fucking muzzle flash coming off the dishcum. And I shit you not, he just sits there for a good 10-15 seconds staring at this boat that's shooting at him and his buddy. Just staring at him. They're like 30 feet off the surface of the water, climbing down this ladder. And he's just staring at this boat shooting at him. And me, in my head, I'm basically screaming, let go of the fucking ladder. Drop in the water. You're a Navy fucking SEAL, for Christ's sakes. Your home is the water. Why are you still staring at the machine gun shooting at you? Like, I wanted to kick him directly in his dick. So, finally, he drops off the ladder, gets into the water, swims around to the rib, and they drag him up in there. Okay, great. Retard finally fucking realized somebody was shooting at him with a 50 caliber machine gun and decided to get in the fucking boat. So now 2 more fucking boats show up and start chasing them in the rib. And they're flanked on either side of them. Alright. So what do the Navy SEALs do? Some of the most highly trained personnel in the world. They all lay down on the inside of the boat, and the dude with the Mark 48 kneels in the center and is swapping back and forth from left side to right side, from left side to right side, putting suppressing fire on these boats. And again, it's somehow not able to hit a fucking thing besides the side of the boat. But he's the only one engaging. And he's swapping, again, back and forth, firing right over top of his buddies' heads who are laying down on either side of him. And he's just kneeling in the center of the boat. I've never met any type of operator that would willingly lay down inside of a rubber boat and let motherfuckers shoot at them with high caliber machine guns and not shoot back and just say, oh no, homeboy with the fucking machine guns got it. We're just gonna lay here. Like, what? What? And then I shut it off. So yeah, new show, SEAL Team, pretty goddamn awesome. Watch the first 10 minutes of it. If you make it through that, you're probably dead or you've fallen asleep. So go check that one out, Hammer.
Yeah, it makes me glad I don't have cable.
Yeah. Well, that brings me to the last one I want to talk about before we kind of wrap this up. Yeah, it makes you question the intelligence of producers. Yeah. And that show is, I believe it's called Valor. Have you seen any of the commercials for it? It just started like last week or maybe even this week.
No, I haven't.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, so the whole reason I even know about this show is because the chick that's in it was in that show Blood Drive, which if you guys have not seen Blood Drive, go fucking watch it. It's absolutely amazing. If you're anything like me and grew up in the era that I grew up, it's total grindhouse horror, just fucking buckets upon buckets of blood. I mean, it makes a Tarantino movie look like fucking I Love Lucy, alright? So, go watch that show. Anyways, the main female lead in that is in this new show, Valor. She plays a pilot, a U.S. Army pilot. Okay, pretty common. Female warrant officer that's a pilot, even in combat areas, that's pretty goddamn common. There's plenty of female pilots that fly missions in combat areas. So this show is essentially about this special Army helicopter unit that inserts and extracts special forces. Because, you have to be special to pick guys up and drop them off in helicopters. You can't just be any old warrant officer to do that. So anyways, from what I've seen in the previews, essentially they go drop off this unit for a mission, and they're in the that new fucking stealth Blackhawk that they used for the Osama shit. It's essentially supposed to be one of those that they're flying. Granted, it's way more fucking advanced than what even that one is, but anyways, they drop these guys off. And then they pick them up later on. They end up getting engaged or some shit. The bird goes down. Everything goes wrong, basically. And now it's about them, figuring out what went wrong, who did what, all this and that. Okay. And again, I haven't even watched the show, so I have no idea exactly what's going on from it. This is just purely based upon the previews. Okay. So I'm guessing it's her CO because he's got captain tags, captain rank. Well, I'll put it this way. His beard is damn near as full as mine. And he's a captain in the United States Army. Please explain that to me.
Maybe I'll go off on Generation Kill Grubin standard shit.
Yeah, exactly. Fucking Sixta's about to fucking come out here. Guys, what I want to get across here is in special forces, especially now, it's become, you got a beard, so you're an operator. The whole beard thing was more so to try somewhat to blend into populace. But it's also the fact that when you're out on patrol for 2-3 weeks, kind of hard to shave. And it's the last thing you're worried about. But I can tell you this. In the regular fucking army, you shave. It doesn't matter what the fuck is going on. Where you're at, you could be sitting in a fucking hole in the side of a mountain somewhere. You better find some water and a knife sharp enough to fucking scrape that shit off of your face. Because you are in the United States fucking Army. And they give no fucks about your personal whining and bitching. Your shit better be groomed. That simple. So this guy, who is on base, mind you, he's not even fucking out on maneuvers or anything like. He's a fucking helicopter pilot. He returns home every night. This dude has a full-on fucking beard and hair that is well below the tops of his fucking ears. And he's a captain. Now, the reason I bring this up is I don't give a shit if they're supposed to be portraying a special helicopter unit and this and that. Again, they're on base. He's a fucking officer in the United States Army. And these fucking absolute fucking pieces of shit producing this show think it's okay to portray this guy having a beard and essentially, by Army standards, long hair. It's just so fucked up, and it pisses me off so much that they think, the producers, directors, whoever the fuck is responsible for it, think, yeah, this is okay, this is cool, he's got a beard, it makes him dark and mysterious. No, fuck off, you're a piece of shit that is trying to portray a U.S. Army captain as being, lackadaisical and not essentially keeping up on his grooming standards like he would be, and he would be fucking destroying somebody's soul if he caught them with a beard like that in his unit, especially if he's the goddamn CO. Like, I don't give a fuck who you are. Standards like that are unfucking acceptable for a TV producer to say, yeah, that's okay. No, the fuck it's not. It's so goddamn wrong that I don't understand how they can possibly have a military advisor who was active duty military stand to the side and say, yeah, that's real. What? Who the fuck is their military military advisor? Like, is it the dude that invented the little green army men? Like, what the fuck? So end of rant there with the show Valor. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Hammer, for the picture. God damn, that chick is smoking. So yeah, there you go, gentlemen. U.S. Army Captain Awalo, or whatever the fuck his name is. Oh, look, he's also got a fucking... Jesus Christ. And she's a Chief Warrant Officer 3. Like, what? What the fuck ever. Alright, so, yeah. Fuck that show in particular. So, any other last-minute shows that pop into your head before we wrap this up, Hammer?
I think I could complain, I could rant, I could go on for a long time about this stuff. So, there's a lot of subjects to cover.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't want to beat you guys with it too goddamn much. So I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up there for tonight, guys. And again, thank you all for hanging out with us. And hopefully you enjoyed our banter, if you will, about the different TV shows and movies and stuff. And don't forget that we do have the squirrel mission coming up here in a little bit, probably about an hour or so. And again, Captain Soto is going to be streaming from the A10 tonight. He does still have the Cast for PR thing going. Don't forget to swing by there and show him some love. And yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed. Again, thank you for hanging out. And I will see you all next week. Later.